We are going to get started. I'd like to introduce Monica Ogis. She's our Director of Strategic Initiatives and Special Projects, and has been working very closely with Dr. Berger to bring her here. So thank you, Monica. And I'll let you go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you, Kristen. Good morning, everybody. Oh, I'm just so blessed that we have a beautiful sunshiny day this Thursday morning. And this is May 6th. So we are kicking off the official National Nurses Week. And we are just absolutely delighted. Back in February, we had Joy come and speak with our group. And she was so well received and inspired us and motivated us that we wanted to have her come back and work with us again. And welcome especially to our colleagues and friends from Emmanuel Medical Center that are helping to bring Joy to us today. So formally allowing me to introduce Joy. Joy Berger is the owner and the CEO of Composing Life Out of Loss. Joy is a prolific, passionate, creative educator, and she specializes in end-of-life care. As her logo voices, it's about life. Joy has 25 plus years of serious illness, hospice, and grief care expertise. She's provided direct patient care on all kinds of hospice teams, palliative care educators. She's worked regionally, nationally, and she's an internationally known author. She has authored the book, Music of the Soul, Composing Life Out of Loss. And this is published internationally in Routledge's series In Death, Dying, and Bereavement. So today we are welcoming Joy back again with us to our family. And she is going to help us celebrate Nurses Week as she presents Cultivating Empathy, Head, Heart, and Action. Please welcome Dr. Joy.
I'm so glad to be with you all again. And yes, you do feel like family. And I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, coast to coast. And my aunt and uncle and their kids growing up lived in Modesto for a period of time. And just yesterday, I talked with my first cousin who's over in Merced, letting her know that I'm doing this. So it is so good to be back with you today. And we thank you, nurses. We celebrate you this Nurses Week 2021. I want you to look at this graphic below, pick a box that strikes your eye, and I want you to think of a moment this past year that a moment for you in providing care to patients that really stands out for you, that you treasure, that has been a real gift to you. And as you do that and you embrace that, think of all of the gifts that you give each day this past year and ahead for the year ahead. Thank you, nurses. I love your mission statements. These are straight from your websites from Community Hospice. Your mission is to embrace individuals and families facing life-changing journeys and enhancing quality of life for all. Empathy is all about that. And for Emmanuel Medical Center, I'm so pleased to connect with you all. You care about the community because century, you have made the community's health its first priority. I bet you took care of my aunt and uncle at some point back in the 1960s. So from a state-of-the-art birthing center to comprehensive care, services are available to treat you and your family at all stages of life. What a wonderful partnership the two of you are sure to have. So moving on into our topic, I asked you, and I'm hearing some kind of sound going on in the background. So does somebody need to be muted? There you go. That's better. Thank you. So for you, in your role, which of these is better? And sometimes we don't even think of these words as being connected to each other. Apathy? I don't think so. Sympathy? And sympathy can often be thought of as an over-under, a pity kind of thing, or empathy. We are going to take apart and put back together the word empathy, what it is and what it is not. So why does it matter? I want you to think of a recent non-empathy interaction you experienced. So this is where you were on the receiving end and you opened the gift box or whatever, and it was a spoiler, you know, it wasn't what you had expected. The other person didn't get you and it cut into you and you still remember it. So I'll tell you it was just a little tiny, an interaction of maybe 5 minutes. December the 10th, I was diagnosed with COVID. And I called my doctor's office to let them know and to find out more specific, what do I need to be doing? And I'm so worried about my husband who has underlying conditions, and what do we need to do for him? And we're not able to get testing for him because now I've diagnosed positive. Well, the person on the other end, who I think was a nurse, so nothing against you all at all, but this person, she represented nurses. Okay, you'll get that piece. She said she was just defensive about my husband getting tested. Well, no, he can't get tested because of this and this and this, versus some kind of, oh, well, I understand. And then when I asked, what do I need to be doing? She said, well, she had that apathy kind of attitude. She said, well, there's no cure. There's nothing really you can do. So just take Tylenol. And then if you can't breathe, get to the ER, get to the emergency room. How do you think I felt? Okay. And fortunately, we did isolate in our home, and we kept my husband safe and all of that. Otherwise, he could have died. I could be sitting here today as a bereaved spouse if I had really listened to her. Well, that cut into me. That stayed with me. That was just a teeny tiny interaction, but it stayed with me. That's like those moments that we give day in and day out. Now, we often think of empathy is walking a mile in my shoes. I mean, even Elvis Presley sang this song. Go Google it. It's kind of fun to watch. Walk a mile in my shoes. But really, do we even have time for that? We don't. It can be those teeny tiny moments, those interactions. It can be a tone in the voice, what we say, how we say it, our body language to somebody else that communicates empathy or non-empathy, that stays with the other person. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And I know that we have a phrase here over in the South about preaching to the choir. I know I'm preaching to the choir with you all because you're doing it, but we're still going to validate it, affirm it, tear it apart, and grow our skills a little bit more. So again, can we truly walk in another's shoes for a mile when we tend so many different patients, caregivers, and family members? Let's change our metaphor from shoes to something that is life, that is active and living, to this tree. And we're going to come back and revisit this tree metaphor throughout. And you see how this tree also, the leaves also kind of look like the shape of a brain. That's very intentional. So with empathy, we learn and we grow and we cultivate this through our roots that have to nurture us. Who are the roots for you? And our branches, where we give it out and we become rest for birds and all kinds of creatures. And we are present through the day and night and in the moments and through the seasons. And it's important for us to bloom where you're planted. So for each of you in your role, I have experienced empathy from Kristen and from Monica and from my husband and from my dogs and from my friends and my family. And so it is important to bloom where you are planted. Now, let's define empathy a little bit better. From research, these are some key qualities of empathy. Again, it is more than sympathy. It is not pity. It is not an over-under kind of thing. It is a respect. It is an undergirding. It is valuing the other. It is empowering the other to be their best. It is an ownership of experience, saying, this is my experience. This is your experience. It is not saying that I feel it exactly like another. Empathy, growth, some keywords. Nature, so it might be, like just certain personalities. We all know different personalities, some who are just a little more brusque, and there are gifts in that, and some who are just a little more compassionate, and there's light and shadow in that. There are also parts of it from our culture. I have dear friends from the Northeast, and I grew up in the Southeast. And so we just talk about some of those cultural differences that we have. it can also be matured in us. And that's a lot of where we're going to go. You heard just that sigh. 5 stressors that hospice professionals face. This is a starting place. Now, this is an ebook that I wrote last year. And these 5 things that I discerned, 5 key stressors that hospice professionals face. I started doing this like back in 1994 when I was chaplain and music therapist for all of our AIDS patients at Hospice of Louisville. And within 9 months, I'd gone through 2 cycles of everyone dying, and I was feeling such overload. I reached out to my colleagues who'd been there for 5 years or more, gathered stuff, started teaching a lot of this and exploring it. And through the years, I've done a whole lot on compassion fatigue and all of that. So you can know that these things come from my personal stresses and those of colleagues. You can download this from my website, composinglife.com. But here they are real quickly: facing suffering and death, emotional overload, the stresses of just getting it all done, the pluses and stresses of technology, and of living one's life well. Somebody laughed. Was that the technology piece? Yeah, I hear it. That's good. Okay, great. On to cultivate. To cultivate. The session today starts with this word. Cultivating means to come to have empathy gradually, to prepare the soil. Cultivate means to prepare the soil for planting new seeds and to make the land suitable for crops or gardens. Now, the word soil is similar to soul, to one's core essence. And isn't that a lot of what our hospice work is about? So now think about the word cultivate as preparing the soul, the soil, your core self for planting new seeds and for making your land, yourself, suitable for growth, for empathy. Now, here's a harsh image here. And it's cutting into it, is turning that soil, which has to happen in the springtime in order to plant and harvest new crops. Cutting into the soil, turning it, tilling it, and caution, this might hurt. Now, pull, those of you who have the handout, pull it out like this because you'll see these images in the top. And here's your task. Describe a recent interaction that dug into you. It cut into the soil, it turned it, and it tilled it for growth. And you want to grow better skills for the future. Now, for me, that one is that incident with COVID that I described to you. What is that for you? If we were in a live session and we had like an hour and a half instead of an hour, we would cut this into small groups and talk about it. We don't have that luxury today, but that's your homework assignment, okay? Now, here's what you need to do with that. Here are our objectives. We are going to apply Goleman's 3 types of empathy to recent encounters in your own life. And that's the grist for the mill, as they say, okay? We're going to look at, now I titled it Heart, Head, and Action, but actually we're going to look at it in terms of, we're going to look at first cognitive, then emotional and empathic concern. We're going to spend a lot of time on that, okay? So if it's getting later in the hour and you're like, she needs to get on, don't worry. That's going to take us a lot of time. Then we're going to describe similarities between that with emotional intelligence. That's going to be a little chunk of time. And then this last one's going to be really short, okay? But choose and discuss at least one challenge in your workplace where you will intentionally cultivate your empathy and others involved, okay? Are you ready? Here we go. And with this, I want you to identify, we're back to that tree image. I love this picture right here. My dad who has died. See, I'm getting sidetracked here because it just takes me to my dad. My dad grew up on a farm, but then later his office was actually, home office was in Portland, Oregon. And then over in Georgia, he headed up manufacturing plywood. So the plywood that's in homes all over everywhere, my dad literally had his hand in that. And I remember as a kid, him showing us on a trunk of a tree how the cracks and the colors and the rings on a tree tell the life story of that tree. So here's the metaphor for you. The rings of this tree and its stories the rings of this tree and the colors tell stories through the years. So do its cracks. What are your family's important stories that helped shape your empathy? Okay. So that is another piece. And so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cultivate your natural empathy. We're going to nurture and mature it. So as we go through these three kinds of empathy, I want you to be identifying two things. One, something that you're already doing great. Pat yourself on the back, give yourself a sticker, whatever. Say, hey, I've really got this one. I'm doing it great. And then I want you to second is see something that you can grow, something that you can nurture, that you can mature. It might be something small, it might be something big, something short-term, something long-term, but this is empowering you to grow your empathy. Okay, you ready? All right, so again, pull out your handout. Oh, that tree image was right down here. Now we're over on page 2. And we're going to go through, and I want you to take down whatever kind of notes we're going to go through. Cognitive, emotional, and empathic concern. You ready? All right, the three kinds of empathy. So, and they overlap like this. They're not just separate, but I like to start with cognitive because this takes it out of that whole thing of empathy is about having to feel it just like another. Now, my husband, no, I'm so blessed. He knows and understands me better than anybody else on this earth. But does he always see it just like me? No. Do I always see and feel something just like him? No. But I know that for the most part, he can kind of get it from me because he knows me. All right. And so there really is not anyone or not even an animal that can, or even our most beloved pets that can feel it exactly, get it exactly like us all the time. Okay. So cognitive empathy is actually the fastest way for us to be able to engage our empathy when we don't feel it the same. Okay. Cognitively is from the mind, using your mind. It is about getting understanding from another's perspective, from their view, from their experience. Here's the important piece. We don't have to hold the same beliefs. We do seek to understand. Now, today in our culture, this is crucial. We've had a horrendous year. we have had such a divisive year, politically, religiously, racially. This has affected our community. COVID, to mask or not to mask, to gather or not to gather, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. This is huge. And so much divisiveness in our communities, in our workplace, in our work, in our families. This is painful. So when those culture wars are at place, cognitive empathy is a great place to start. And guys, my hair is just driving me crazy. Something didn't do right. It keeps falling down in my head. So face. Okay, cognitive empathy. Here is the question for you. And we've got the thinker there. To react or to respect? Perhaps that is the question. And some of this may be a repeat from the session that we did before, but it bears repeating. Okay. So this is in that immediate moment. Are we going to react? And this is where you act it out and you react with fight, flight, or freeze. Or do you pause? Do you, in that thinking, respect? And this is where you see it again. This is cognitive empathy. You step back, you see it again, you put on your glasses, you pull out the magnifying glass, you step back, pull out the telescope to see it better, clearer from different perspectives. And I just said the word perspectives, spectacles, spectator, respect, to see it again and again and again. And one thing, if you know me, is that I love words. I love to play on words and see how they work. So here's another great one. Don't assume. We all know what that means, right? So don't assume that you totally understand what the other person is. Ask them questions. And especially when, I just don't get it. I just don't. How can you be a rational human being and see it like this? Okay. This is a great time to then ask those open-ended questions, those open questions. Tell me more. Help me understand. I do have family members that we can say, okay, we are on total opposites of this, and this. Help me understand. I'll just say I have a beloved niece who I remember way back in August, she's saying she will not go in stores that require her to mask. And I'm saying, and my husband and I will not go in stores that that don't require you to mask. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think so. And I'm the one who got COVID. Anyway, tell me more, help me understand. Write these on Post-its and stick them someplace. Use these. Okay, we're back to our tree analogy. Look at, especially in our hospice roles, and Emmanuel Hospital, your part of the thing from your website was about those through the life cycle, and community hospice. It was on your website about life changes. Okay, so get to know this person's life story, antecedent. So I don't think I used that word before. That is an important word in grief, loss, care. Antecedents, think of it as ancestors. Okay, but again, the rings of this tree that tell the stories through the years. What are this person's important family stories that shape your empathy for this other person? Okay. Cultures. We talked about the cultural divide, the cultural wars. I want to bring some wisdom to you from some different cultures. So first, a Chinese proverb: be not disturbed at being misunderstood. Be disturbed, rather, at not being understanding. Another one, a prayer attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi: grant that I may not so much seek to be understood as to understand. And another from a Native American tradition. And think of it, all of these were created way back before there was any kind of internet or telephone or other kinds of systems. This is stuff that was generated and grown down deep in the soul from people who had those kinds of experiences of having been misunderstood. Let my heart, soul, and mind be always strong with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's my favorite. I got to say that one again. Let my heart, soul, and mind be always strong with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Okay, on to emotional empathy. You got that one? Cognitive, your mind, and with that cut off. Okay, this is feeling what another feels. And we at Hospice are so good with that. I mean, you look at just about any kind of hospice website, and it has all of these wonderful, compassionate, the hands, which, all of that changed with COVID and all of that. But here's also the caution that I want to put to you. Every light, can you see my light back here? Every light has its shadow as well. Okay. And our best strengths can be our shadow as well. You know that. I know that. So here's the shadow of emotionally feeling it just like somebody else, or thinking that you're feeling it just like somebody else, is that poor management of emotional empathy can lead to enmeshment and burnout. And this is a lot of what so many of us have been struggling with this last year. And I do not say that those of you who are feeling burned out, that it is because of enmeshment. Okay, so hear me say that loud and clear. I am not saying that feelings of burnout come from that. I'm saying that this can be a factor that leads into that, especially in more normal times. Okay, I want to be really clear about that. So here we go. An interaction with another person, it strikes a match. It ignites an emotion in you. I'm talking to someone, I hear about their story, and oh, wow, I remember. I know just what that feels like. Wow. And so I'm passionate. I say, oh, I know just how you feel. Let me tell you about. And then thinking that you're showing empathy, do you instead hijack the other's experience? Now, as the director of our Hospice Institute here in Louisville, director of education for our 500 plus employees, my favorite was teaching orientation and bringing new people in. And we did an exercise like this. Can you see me? I would find, one of the new orientees who I knew would play with me and ask their permission first, but they would sit in front of me. Let me see if I can kind of stand here a little bit. And I would ask the other person to put out their hands like this. And I would be sitting straight in front of them, at their same level, and we would do the same. And so I would say, okay, I have just put out my hands. I have invited you to share something very important about your life with me. You have responded. You are putting out your hands, and you are opening up to me at a very depth. Well, that ignites that emotion in me. And then I say, oh, let me tell you just how I feel. I know just all about that. What does that other person do? Can you see me? Pull it back. Pull it back. That's not good. Okay. So as the professional, here are some things to do. We feel it. Oh, I know just how you feel. But instead of letting those words come out of your mouth, you think it in your brain. And instead of saying, let me tell you about, this is what you need to do. You feel that emotional trigger to another's experience, but you use your self-awareness, your brain, your thoughts to recognize, name, and claim. Name and claim this as your emotional response. Remember, I mentioned earlier the importance of ownership. This is, okay, this person is telling me about this. I remember this with my mom, and I felt really sad. Okay, so number 2, do not assume that the other person's emotion is just like yours. No, that person might be feeling really angry about it, or might be feeling really glad or fearful. Okay, don't assume, but use your emotion to be emotionally curious. You ask instead of assuming about what the other person's experience might be. And you refocus yourself to keep connected with that other's experience and needs. And you know what? You are then growing, cultivating, growing, maturing your understanding, your empathy with others. So let's go back to that emotion that you feel. And I want to give you this simple little thing to remember these emotions, and you can use it with your kids. Kristen, I don't remember if I gave this to you guys last time or not. Do you remember?
I believe you did, actually.
Okay. So anyway, here we go again. And it's kind of a little rhyme. Mad, sad, afraid, glad. Okay. Play this. Say this with your kids in the car, post it on your refrigerator, easy for you to remember. And here's some notes that I put to it. Mad, sad, afraid, and that has to go somewhere. Glad, okay? Mad, sad, afraid, glad. You're going to be quizzed on those 4 words a little bit later, okay? So name it, claim it. This is what I'm feeling. Give it a name. Now, what are you going to choose to do with your ignited emotion? Are you going to be a pain with it and you're going to burn others up? Are you going to be a drain with it and you're going to burn them out, or are you going to be humane with it and you're going to have empathy and understanding with that emotion? Let yourself feel the emotion. Don't cut it off, but contain it like this kerosene lamp. Use that emotion like the flame. And again, you want to contain it so that you can use it safely. And just like this little knob on it, you want to adjust its flame and light and warmth to the need. And I'm thinking, just like right before I think we went live, Kristen and I were talking about the dangers of wildfires in your areas. You especially know the importance of containing those fires and then being safe, and how you also need the light from it. So dangers with this are with emotional empathy, feeling it like another. Do not project your emotions, your values, or solutions onto the other, as in assuming that you know exactly what the other is feeling. And then telling them. I personally hate it when somebody tells me, oh, this is what you should do. Okay. Don't get enmeshed in fixing something that is beyond the scope of your professional role. And I'll tell you, one of the best things that works for me with my sister, with either of us, is when we say, like I may say to her, oh, wow, I just feel for you so much. And I trust that of all the people in this world, you are doing your best to figure this out, or so that I'm giving support. I am giving emotional support with trust and empowerment, which then also opens the door at an appropriate time to be able to then offer cognitive information that might be different, a different perspective. So it's also important, and I'm not, let's see, I wasn't able to see that because of where I've got the screen on my thing here. Okay. I'm going to go back there. Whoops. Bear with me. Okay. That it is important that you do use your emotion as a guide to what the other might be feeling. Okay, there we go. That's what I needed to get out there, that you do use your emotion as a guide to what the other might be feeling. Kristen, are you all seeing my whole screen?
I believe so.
Okay, great. I'm seeing I'm seeing you guys in on it as well. So sometimes I'm not able to see the script, but here we go. Here, and here, another play on words. Have you ever noticed that your ear is shaped like a question mark? And this is where you can use your emotional empathy, again, as clues for questions to ask. So again, ask open-ended questions, and you can turn your statement. This is a fun little trick here. Turn your statement from a period into a question mark simply by raising the pitch of your voice at the end. By raising the pitch of your voice at the end. Did you hear that? Okay, here's a period. You feel angry, period. Voice inflection is down. Now I'm going to raise the inflection at the end. You feel angry? Question mark. Shortcut. Open-ended. Invite the other person to tell me more. Keep my hands out here, outstretched, so that I am staying focused on that person. We're again back to tell me more, help me understand. Got it? Okay. And the focus is on the other person's lamp, the other person's emotions that are ignited. You have helped to bring light, to bring cognitive information and your core emotions, for discerning this other person's personalized needs and then best actions to take. Our kerosene lamp, it's at its best when you're holding it and carrying it around. Oh, I should have put in my Florence Nightingale graphic or image. My nurse educator, Elaine, had on her wall a very famous image, painting, drawing of Florence Nightingale. And she was called the Lady with the Lamp, and the start of nurses. And, she was really important. It so ties in with COVID, with sanitation and with using data and with getting standardized procedures and all of that kind of stuff. So again, this does come back to Happy Nurses Week. We thank you. We value you. And you nurses are so great at this next one, the empathic concern action. Now, this is being able to accurately sense, I should have put the word accurate in there, accurately sense what another needs, and then taking wise, compassionate action to help. I'm remembering being in the hospital room with my dad, his last week of life. We didn't know that it would be his last week. It was. And one particular nurse who came in, and it was just something about how she introduced herself and whatever it was that she asked. And so thank you. Those moments really do matter and really do stay with us. So accurately sensing what another needs and taking wise, compassionate action to help. Now, are you seeing empathy as head and heart and empathic concern, which is like, our hands and our feet? It is about, bear with me, it's about the hokey pokey. When you come to work, you put your whole self in, okay? And at the end of the day, we also need to take our whole self out to restore, refuel ourselves, and live our own lives with our family. But here we go. In giving care, back to empathy, really looking at your story, what messages did you learn about giving care to others? Because this is going to play into how you give care to others. I love using this information with people who have chosen healthcare caregiving roles. And so much of this plays out. Now, this is from Charles Figley's research, and he is the one who really coined the term compassion fatigue back in the 1990s. So this is evidence-based research stuff. But on the left is as a kid, as a child, this was something going on in your world, in your immediate family, in your situations. And then on the right are some survival strategies that you learned to develop. Okay, so here's one. Must save others. For whatever reason, I got to take care of my mom, I got to take care of my dad or whomever. And so you learn to rescue, protect, and provide for others. Or must be saved by others. And that is learning to really attach, to protect, be protected, and to be provided for. And a lot of the time we can find these different persons in our own family system, who fits kind of some of these pegs. We all have all of these, okay, but when this becomes a theme. Another one, I've got to achieve a goal. This was my way to survive. And so learning to work really hard, to be really assertive, and perhaps even to be combative with that. Or learning, I just have to surrender this. So learning to adapt, accept, and grieve. There are good things in each one of these, okay? So these are not pathological, these are not negatives, these are not good or bad, these are kind of neutral. It's then what do you do with these? So giving care to others. The next one we're going to look at is, as a child, what messages did you learn about taking care of yourself? So this is going to be similar, but this is about yourself. Means of survival. Oh, I got to take myself. This is a dangerous situation. I got to take myself out of danger. So we learn to fight. We learn to defend. We learn to get rid of the situation. Or we learn that we've got to remove ourselves from danger. So we learn, I need to flee. I need to retreat. I need to save myself. It might be, I've got to find more scarce essentials. So learning to compete, to struggle, learning to acquire stuff. Must create more essentials. Okay, I can't obtain them from somewhere, so I got to create them here. And with that, a sense of reciprocity, sharing, or synthesis. Now, not to just bog us down and all of that. And I find social workers and chaplains and grief counselors especially enjoy this. I don't know if this connects for you guys as nurses or not, but let's move on for this. My question to you is, which of these messages is working well for you? You know, this has served you well through life. Typically, what will happen is around midlife, some of those earlier messages aren't, you know, they get kind of snagged or something. It's like, this isn't working for me anymore, and I got to shift it up or change it. So which of these messages is not working for you very well anymore, and you need to change it? You need to shift it up. So some of those other messages, it might be, okay, I'm going to take on and try and learn from this. Let's move on. Again, empathy is about getting it from the other's experiences, cognitively getting it. It is about feeling compassion. It is about being able to connect and the other person feeling that from us. Well, let me back up. I said that cognitive empathy is the fastest way to get to empathy in the midst of conflict, okay? Because you don't have to feel it just like the other. Emotional empathy is the fastest way to connect with the other person so that they really feel understood. And then acting wisely, that piece has to be in there as well. Okay. Here are some core principles. I discerned these in my book, Music of the Soul. Core principles. So an acronym. And think of these as verbs. So it is about caring for the other person. We start with that. That's easy. Then with care is ownership. And it is saying, this is your experience. Tell me more about your experience. Okay. It is about respecting that person as a person. And it is about empowering that person. Not the sympathy, pity, doing stuff, taking it away from them, but empowering them. Similarly, some healing techniques, and that is where we really hear that person's story. Remember those antecedents? We explore, we get to know that person, that family. And then we affirm. Again, this doesn't mean you have to agree, but you can affirm, you can validate that this is this person's experience, and we can learn. That's where we are maturing, cultivating, nurturing, growing. And those of us who've been in this field, I keep finding that people stay in it because of the ways that we have grown as persons, the ways that we continue to learn and be from those that we serve. Okay. Whoops. Be present in the present with these. I bring to you, I feel sure we used this before, but with all of this, the question, what can you control or not? And especially in COVID-19, and I still see masks that are being worn, and even in the midst of vaccines, and now we're trying to figure out all of this. What is this? So, and I bring this to you from Hospice of Washington County over in Maryland. This is a grief loss exercise that they were using with children back before COVID happened. And the basics of it are, you hold some rocks in your hand and you do them around. And then you think about, okay, what's going on that I cannot change? What can I not, whatever I do with these, I cannot change these rocks. Okay. And then you take some Play-Doh and it's like, what can I change? And what can I create out of this? So this can be a great team opener or closer if you've got, 5-10 minutes, whatever. And a great centering exercise for you, or something for you to do with your kids and grandkids. Let's pull this together. Empathy plus accountability equals patient care outcomes. And isn't that what we are all about? And especially for you as nurses, I invite you to think of cognitive empathy as being that plan. Okay, stay with me. Emotional empathy is care. And guess what? These two together, empathic concern, pulling all of those together, is the patient's plan of care. And doesn't that drive so much of all that we do? Okay, I told you that that was going to take up a lot of time, so don't worry, we're going to move through this part much faster. And this is describing the similar heart, head, and action components of both empathy and emotional intelligence. We talk about the heart of hospice, but I love to challenge people with the mind of hospice as well. And have you ever noticed in mental health terminology that it has huge emotional components? So body of work, of research on emotional intelligence. And I also like to think about these as intelligent emotions, and that's with the heart and the mind working together, both together. That's with our feelings and our thoughts, our passion and our purpose. And I hope you have been hearing and seeing that throughout. And the importance of connecting with your neck. At my first 3-month clinical practicum, my supervisor said that our job those next 3 months was to get a neck. I was like, huh? What? He said to connect your heart and your head. Isn't that great? So that the two are working together. And so I have added to that the importance of to stretch your neck up and down and all around so that you can see the other. And like that tree, your feet, you are firmly planted in the ground in your context, your situation, your role. But then you still need to be able to see, hear, and respond to others. Now, the scientific definition for emotional intelligence is the ability to accurately perceive your own emotions and others' emotions. Doesn't that sound like the stuff from before? To understand the signals that emotions are sending about relationships and to manage emotions within yourself and with others. Now, here's the sequence for emotional intelligence. The end is effective relationships, and we back it up to empathy, self-management, self-awareness. There's empathy, but you know what? In hospice care, especially, and hospital nurses, everything, if you look at the Medicare conditions of participation, the standards of quality, all of these just assume that we start with professional advanced empathy skills. So we got to back it up in the moment, be able to name and claim these. This is on your handout right here. Okay, to write those down. Mad, sad, afraid, glad. You got it? So that you can then do that self-awareness, name it, and then self-management, like that kerosene lamp where you are choosing it. So again, we're just reviewing, summarizing, pulling this together, where an interaction with another person ignites an emotion in you. What do you do with it? And an important piece here is the pause that reframes it. Your gut gets hit, you're triggered, you're self-aware. You can stay engaged, just like, remember that exercise with the empathy, with the hands held out, instead of hijacking it, you stay engaged, and yet your mind is thinking it. And then you engage your thinking brain and you choose what you're going to do with it. I love this quote, Ben Franklin. Say it with me. Remember not only to say the right thing in the right place, but far more difficult still, to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. Take that home and use that for yourself with your family, okay? Or in a team meeting or whatever. So real quickly, we're going to go through these, and this is on your handout, okay, at number 7. The importance of naming the emotion. I feel mad, or I'm using a more adult word, angry. You create the pause and you engage your thinking skills, and you ask yourself, hey, what's the threat? I feel sad. What's my loss? What's the loss? I feel afraid. What's at stake? I feel happy. What do I value? Again, these are right here. Take and use these. And I these instead of the others about the caregiver, because I think this can actually be more practical for you. So this is about feelings and facts, heart and head. It's about being both realistic and being relational. And these are about being both conscious and conscientious. And so these are about choosing and using what you're going to do with that flame, with that light. It is about developing empathy. So now we're going to take and we're going to use the same thing to hear and understand the other person's bigger triggers. Okay. So with your teammate, with your family member, especially with that other person, that there's that disconnect, that cultural war, that cultural difference, disconnect. Okay, I see that she feels angry. What is her threat? So when you can then step back and begin to see that cognitively, and then, oh, okay, I can connect at an emotional level with that. I don't see it exactly the same, but I know what that feels like. And then being able to take that empathic action. Okay. I can tell she feels sad. Step back. What is her loss? We've seen how to use these. She feels afraid. What's at stake? She feels happy. What is it that she values? What is it about this that's important? And then again, you can use those same kinds of questions about, tell me more, help me understand. So self-awareness, self-management, empathy, effective relationships. Effective relationships take all of this stuff back earlier on. My synthesis for both empathy and emotional intelligence is name and claim it. Okay. I'm feeling mad, sad, afraid, or glad. Then choose and use it. I'm going to choose it. And then how am I going to use it? I choose this. Okay. And then live and give it like that tree. All right. So number 3, and again, really fast, is for you to write down at least one challenging situation in your workplace where you will intentionally, I will do this. I will cultivate my empathy for others involved, cognitively, emotionally, empathically. These 4 words that I used earlier: nature, nurture, culture, maturity. I found those words in research about empathy. And I thought, oh, I wonder what that prefix means. I went and looked it up. It means action. How great is that? So again, you can take and download this, and this will probably help you identify what's name and claim what some of those stresses are for you. In your handout, these are your growth questions. I want to grow my capacity too. And just, I've got like 10 things here listed. And so identify one of these that you want to do. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're on the back of your handout. I want to grow my capacity. Whoops, I'm going backwards instead of forwards. Here we go. I want to listen without jumping to judgment. I want to recognize how my behavior affects others. These are a lot of these. Just choose one of these and then focus on it. And then some other questions for you, like, I'm learning to do this. I'm purposefully practicing. Who can you seek honest feedback from? What soil are you tilling? What seeds are you planting? And who gardens with you? Ahead, what will families remember about the services that they have experienced with you, and how will it affect their coping? That experience with that nurse back when I was diagnosed with COVID stays with me. And so I can either let it eat at me, or I can grind it up, let that be a seed that I plant, that I use to learn and grow. How will your moments influence their future decisions about serious illness or end of life care? It's been good to be with you. I got to say, give an applause to my 2 little dogs who are in this same room with me so that they're not barking in other places of the house. Let's open it up for questions. Kristen.
Thank you, Dr. Berger, and thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Monica, did you have something to say quickly? I see you're at the microphone. I do want to, at this moment, before you get started, just invite anybody who has any comments or questions to please go ahead and enter those into the chat box at this time, and we will make sure to address them. Go ahead,
And
Monica.
again, I'll hang out afterwards, just as if this was a live, if I was right there with you. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Joy, so very much. I just wanted to share that what you said at the end, the entire presentation was very meaningful, and it gives me food for thought to think about how I might in the future grow my own maturity and empathy in others. But it was a volunteer at a hospital who came to myself and my family when my father was on the verge of dying. And the other professionals were focused on what was happening in the patient room. And this volunteer wandered through the crowd and came and found myself and my brothers. And she put her hands out, just like you did. She put her hands out and introduced herself as a volunteer that would be with the families during difficult times. And it's amazing, that moment of empathy and understanding and care changed my life and brought me to hospice.
Wow.
So thank you for sharing and helping us grow in our journey to help others. Sorry, I get emotional.
Thank you. No, that's what it's about. That's not it. That's what it's about. And it is about feeling those emotions. Yeah. Thank you, Monica.
Any questions in the room?
Thank you, Monica. No questions so far. A lot of lovely comments. Thank you, Joy. Lots of great ideas to think about. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation and good mindful, intentional activities. So helpful for self-understanding and growth. Thank you, Joy. Lots of new analogies, ideas to implement. So no questions, just lots of fond comments.
Okay, great. It is wonderful being with you. And so I know that you all have a full day to get to, but again, I'm gonna hang here because sometimes, there's a comment or a thought that people like to put out, but in a little bit more of a contained space versus
Perfect.
everyone.
So at this time, Dr. Joy Berger will stay with us, and I am going to stop the recording. So those of you that do want to end the session, you're welcome to do so. And those of you that like to stay, please feel free. We encourage you to use this time. And with that, Dr. Berger, I do want to just again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and sharing all the great insights.
My privilege. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much.